Hey, this is Jared Krause, host of the Buying Online Business podcast, and this is a very exciting episode. It's episode number 2, and we have our special guest, Mr. Charley Valher, on from Outsourcing Angels. And in this episode, we're going to be digging deep on should you buy one or multiple websites. So if you're looking at investing in online businesses or owning a few different online businesses and building an online business empire to be making passive income, be sure to tune into this episode because it's going to be very, very valuable for you. Hey guys, and welcome to the Buying Online Businesses podcast. And today we'll be talking about should you buy one or multiple websites when building an online business empire. And very lucky again to have Charley on board talking with us about buying multiple sites or one business. Now, normally I could go away and introduce you, Charley, and all your titles and all your highlights that you've done in your career, but you want to give everybody a brief summary of how you got into making money online and a little bit about your journey before we start getting into the crux of the actual podcast.
Hello, Jared. Thanks for having me on the show. I love this topic, by the way. This is a topic that is very near and dear to my heart. So I'm eager to discuss in detail about the idea of buying one or multiple because there's pros and cons, definitely pros and cons. So guys, if you do want to hear more about me, in episode 1 of the podcast, I gave a much longer answer. So if you want to understand more of my background, please go check that out. But the brief, I suppose we'll call it quick intro, is that I'm a co-founder of a company called Outsourcing Angel, which specializes in, VAs and offshore teams in the Philippines. So that's been a big part of my focus for the last few years. Prior to that, I've had marketing agencies, so did a lot in digital marketing. And then across that whole journey, I've had experience in buying and selling websites. I've been involved in a couple of different sites, some very big sites, some smaller sites, some that went well, some that didn't go well. And then today, I'm eagerly excited and still building out my own portfolio of sites. So very focused on starting new sites or buying existing sites, which I know you're a huge fan of, and just going to be doing more and more of it because I think it's just such a winner.
Yeah, you have some really good ambitions moving forwards. And I first wanted to talk about like owning multiple sites. So have you ever been in it? Because I know myself, Charley, when I first started buying websites, I went, all right, cool. I'm going to go away and buy, a $15,000 business or whatever it was. And that was kind of my crash dummy test investment to see if this thing was actually legit and you could make money online through this. And it went really well and I got a 30% return on my investment. And I thought, okay, cool. If I want to make the same amount of money, I need to buy a business that's the same size as this or maybe buy a bigger business. And so instead of going away and growing that business, what I decided to do is buy another one. And I got a really good return on that one, which is the best one I ever bought. And then I went away and I bought another one and I kept buying businesses. And all of a sudden I had all these businesses under my wing and I was making a whole lot of money, which is really good. And I had to start working out ways I could automate these businesses. And it was great, although I've learned a lot from it, which is what I want to talk about in this podcast. But I want to ask you, have you ever owned multiple sites and had split focuses, and how did you deal with that? And was it good for you? Was it working? Was it what you liked? And I mean, I'm asking 1,000 questions in one, but let's just start the first one. Have you owned multiple websites?
Oh, it's such a good question, though. There's many good questions. So disclosing, like right now, I own multiple websites and multiple companies. So I've even got things happening outside of websites, and split focus is certainly a part of what I do at the moment. But I'm deeper in my journey where I've got team and resources to support that split focused. But I want to loop back to like the crux of what you asked there, though. So for me, like Outsourcing Angel, as we were growing that, like, to this day, like Outsourcing Angel is a 7-figure company. We have like 100 staff. And in growing that, it needed a lot of my attention. And I had to be really focused on that. And what was so attractive about websites and buying online businesses was the idea of the passive nature, where I could buy these sites and not have to be there every day like I was in the growing of Outsourcing Angel. Like they do have such a different nature as a business compared to like other things. And this is, again, super, super attractive. So getting into this, my intention was like I was making good money from outsourcing angels, and I was taking that money and then investing it in websites or other investment vehicles. And like this is my portfolio of things that get me a return. Now, that's what I went in with the intention of, I should say. It's very interesting how things kind of play out because, outsourcing angel grew dramatically and then it's ended up requiring me less and less, which has been fantastic because we have a CEO, we have a COO now and all these things. So I've been able to put much more attention into other things like my sites and all the rest. But I think there's a huge danger point in trying to go too wide too early. And I think when you do go too wide too early, so if I'd have tried to, focus on all these sites and focus on outsourcing angel, it would have just been like a recipe for disaster in all honesty. Like it really, really would have probably taken me under. So when I look at it, I think that every business owner has to really pick what they're focusing on and then certainly recognize that some business models, especially websites, have a very different passive nature than others.
Yeah, I totally agree. And probably the number one thing that we're going to be coming back to on whether owning one or multiple websites, whether it's worth it or not to each individual, is coming back to the level of focus. And I know that when I first started, and people were also telling me when I first started becoming an entrepreneur, I was doing 1,000 different things. And now I've realized, and I've learned from so many different mentors, that one of the keys to success, because there's lots of them, is to be very, very focused. And I noticed that when I first started, I bought one and I bought another one, and I had my focus split in different areas and trying to manage those. And I thought, would it be worth me working and focusing on just one and building it up a lot more rather than, let me give you an example. Would it be worth me buying a $20,000 business? Or let's say for round numbers, right? Would it be worth me buying a $30,000 business, which is making me $10,000 a year, and then buying another $30,000 business and then another $30,000 business? So having $90,000 worth of business, but in 3 businesses, making me $30,000 a year and having 3 different focuses? Or would it be worth me having one business worth $90,000 that was paying me $30,000 a year and only had to have one focus? And I noticed for me, when I was first starting out, that was a bit of a struggle. And I had to come back to a position where I started really automating my websites in a way that I could have more focus on one of my businesses. And I noticed for you, when you first started, I think it was a little bit different. Tell us about how you first started with your focus.
It's funny, I was listening to that story and I'm like, yep, that was me as well. I think we overestimate, actually I'll put this out, I think we overestimate how many things we focus on or we can focus on. I think we underestimate the power of focusing on one thing. I really, really do.
Yep.
Now, I ended up kind of in my first website by chance. It kind of accidentally came across my radar. And I only had one website at that point. And even then, the split focus between outsourcing angel and this one website certainly paid a toll. So I'm a big advocate of kind of focusing on one thing at a time. I kind of look at this and go if you're someone, I have to throw in some factors here. Okay, so if you're new in this game, I think the best thing you can do is start with one site and just spend a couple of years getting really, really good at the skills that go into one site. Because it's most likely going to be just you and maybe some contractors. You're not going to be building a team or anything at that point unless you've got an existing team from something else. And I think it's super healthy to do that because you're not just building a site, you're developing a skill set. And as soon as you split that, and let's say you can have one site and go really deep, as soon as you have multiple sites, you've now just really, I suppose, only enhancing that first level of depth. You're getting good at, let's say, sites to a certain extent. And this is really common. In the marketplace, I kind of see a lot of people that are great at maybe starting a site and getting it to $1,000 a month, but then they suck at taking it from $1,000 a month to $10,000 a month. And it's because...
Sorry.
I was going to say, I sincerely believe it's because of split focus. It's because they know how to get to that point and they've done that multiple times, but they never put the effort and energy into going deeper.
Yeah, certainly. And that's something we could definitely talk about is scaling a website business, which we'll probably be able to do another podcast on shortly. And I definitely agree with you that level of focus, they've only focused on how to get it to a certain point, and then they either stop or give up or just go, oh, well, why would I bother growing it even more? Because they may not see the value in that yet. Rather than, oh, I'm just going to start another one, build it up and sell it. And that's why there are so many businesses out there that pop up for sale that have been, only around for 6 months to a year. And you touched on a really good point that I want to come back to, is that you're buying one business to start off with and growing it. And this is a strategy that a lot of my clients, I used to ask them this particular question with their goals and guidelines. And that is like, how many businesses or how much money worth of business would you need to own to be able to achieve your goals? And a lot of people would come back and they'd be like, sometimes people were anywhere from like 5 to 10 businesses. And I'm like, wow, that's intense. That's kind of crazy. And then it was really good for me to jump on and give them a bit of clarity on like what that would actually look like for them. And a strategy that I like to give to a lot of my clients is that I tell them, look, it's really good to do what you said, Charley, is go away and buy your first business and learn how to grow it and learn so much from the business. And then if you want to build your portfolio even bigger and you're having trouble scaling that business to the next level, I either focus on how to scale it and learn more about how to scaling it, or sell that business and then buy a bigger business. And then if you want to get a bigger one, again, sell it and then buy a bigger one. So kind of like upgrading as you go through rather than acquiring many and having that split focus.
Yeah, definitely. I really love that, Jared. I think that's such a smart play. I never really thought about the idea of upgrading, but I certainly think if you've maxed out your potential on a site and you've done well with it, that it probably is a great time to sell and move into the next one.
Yeah, and even if you kind of upgrade to one and it's at a level where it's growing at a different rate or it's scaling at a different rate to the previous business you did own, then you're not just upgrading, but you're also changing and shifting your focus onto a different way that you can scale a business from X to Y in that same sort of field, rather than having to go back and buy 2 businesses that were at a lower income and build them back up with the skill set you already had. You get to keep growing yourself. And I find for me, like I've been having some challenges and always have challenges through my life. And the more the challenges I have, the more I grow. And then also the bigger the challenges are, like scaling a business in different ways, then the more growth I get once I've come out the other side as well. So I think that's a really good personal development tool to use as well.
There's a fantastic book called The Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz. And it's a fantastic book, but the emphasis of it is like, the challenge is where you go learn to be great. Like you don't actually develop on the easy stuff. And I just think that is so true. So it's like, in your answer just then, it's like, it's breaking through the challenges and learning how to scale past or to that next point is like when you develop. It's not in the easy bits, which you already know how to do.
Yeah, certainly. And I love books. I'm going to have to grab that one. I know that you and I share book titles a bit, but there's one called The Obstacle is the Way that a lot of my clients
Ryan Holiday. Ooh, love that one.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite books, specifically on emotional intelligence. And it's just the book title says it all, right? The obstacle is the way, like it's the way forward. It's the way to growth. And if anybody's kind of listening to this podcast, they're probably on a path to wanting to grow themselves and either make money online or just become a better person. And you can use making money online as a tool to do that. And those obstacles that you get is a good thing because it helps you grow so much more. And I used to talk to a lot of people on the phone before I had a team, and people used to tell me they've got so many fears and so many problems and they don't want any more of that. And I used to say, like, call me crazy, but the more of those I have, the better. Like, I actually want more problems. If I have more fears, it's actually really good, because I know that if I overcome those, I'm going to get massive growth. And it's kind of, people may look at me in being quite sick in that sense, but I'm obsessed with growth. And yeah.
Well, you are a bit of a sadist, but that's fine. That's fine. We can totally work with that. No, it's a very healthy mindset. I think embracing that type of mindset is certainly the difference for a lot of people, between making it and not. If you're looking for easy, this is not the place. Like, if you're looking for something where you're never going to have a challenge, then don't buy a website.
Yeah, I certainly agree. And that's a challenge that some people come to us with, is they want to snap their fingers and make money overnight. And our message, and a lot of my guys that work with me now, our message that runs through the company is that, like, this isn't easy. It's simple, because there's a certain type of, or a certain amount of steps, which is quite methodical, but through those steps there are those challenges along the way. And if you're prepared to push through those challenges and be outside of your comfort zone, then it's definitely worth it, because you do get rewarded. But if it's not for you, that's cool as well, right? I mean, like, there's people that are just stoked to, have a good job, and you can define what a good job is depending on what you like, but are happy to just work a job and do their thing. And if they're happy, that's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I agree. So Jared, I'm curious about something, right? We've both basically said, like, focus is important, especially when starting out. But like, even I said it earlier in this episode, like, I have multiple sites, and I'm pretty sure you do too.
Yep.
And when I look at this, when is it okay to start, I suppose, assessing you can have multiple sites then, in your opinion?
That is an awesome question. And in my opinion, it's that when you buy your first business, and then maybe you upgrade, you sell it, or grow it, and you build it. I guess the answer to that question is that at any time of you being an owner of a business, when you are getting more free time, or you're removing yourself from the business by automating it in a certain way, and when you do start to have more time either for yourself or whatever it is, then you do want to start using that time, is to go away and buy another business or work on another venture, rather than going, all right, cool, I've ticked this box, but I'm still crazy busy with this business. Let me just chuck another whole heap on top. And then you go and chuck another heap on top by getting another business and another business. And that's a recipe for disaster. For me, even when I did start buying businesses, I made sure before I bought my second business, my first business was automated to a certain level that I could have some time and focus on the second one, and the same with the third one, and so on and so forth. So yeah, I do have multiple businesses. And right now, same as you, like, I know you got multiple businesses. Some of my businesses actually take me, 1 to 2 hours, 3 hours a week. And, I've got a business that I do rarely anything to run, maintain, and manage. And that's because I have put things in place that I can allow myself to have time for myself and focus on my bigger mission, which is definitely, as you can see, my mission, helping as many people have financial freedom through what we do here at Buying Online Businesses. So the answer to that is, as soon as you can see, you can start removing yourself from the business and allowing more time to start focusing on something else. I believe that's a really good way to go about, adding something else to your portfolio. What would you say about that?
Well, I just wanted to say that's a good answer, Jared. Very good answer. From my point of view, like, capacity definitely is a leading indicator. Like, if you're chasing a new website, let's say your goal is to create more income, but you don't have any more time, and you think just adding another site in is going to take you to that next income level, it's probably not. In fact, it's probably just going to cause you a whole bunch of stress, and you'll start dropping the ball in all kinds of areas. So I think, like, when I look at this, and like, this is from experience, it's like thinking you can just add more in to break through that next level isn't really the case. Like, I've never had an experience where just adding more things in went well. Like, capacity is a factor. For me personally, though, I've really gone about this in a different way now. Like, I'm I'm really into team. I think team is so important in every business. So, I mean, this is a personal view. I'm not going to say this is the only way, but how I like to do things now is I really believe that you want to build yourself a fantastic team of A players, and then your job actually becomes to build the A players, and then they build your business, which is something Brad Sugars even often references. And what I love about that is that for me, my focus has actually been building this team out. So I have a team of, I'll say 6 at the moment, and all they do is focus on my sites. So whether it's SEO or content or backlinks or marketing efforts or social media, is like their whole role is just working on that. So what I've tried to build rather than it being on me is like the capacity of the sites is never on me now. It's all on the idea of like, what can the team handle? And that's been really good from my point of view. I've enjoyed doing it this way over like putting it all on myself that I previously would.
I love that. I really do. And one of my mentors, he says to me, Jared, if you don't have team, you don't have time. And it's
good call.
It's just so true. And when I started building my team, I really realized the more I could reduce my workflow and allow myself to re-energize myself, and with that energy focus on the far more important things, and then that time that you do spend building on the team is really, really valuable time, and it's stuff that I love to do actually, because I don't have to be directly with people that we bring into the business like clients. I can work more with the team, and the better I do that, the better the team becomes and the better results happen for our clients as well. And I've got a question for you, Charley, and that is something, because you've been building teams for far longer than I have, and it's a question that I sort of struggle with when I was first starting buying websites. And I know a lot of people that obviously my clients are buying businesses and buying websites, and they're kind of thinking like, when is the right time to bring on somebody into my team, whether it be a VA or somebody helping with marketing or whatever it is. So in your opinion, like, what would you believe is a good stage in business to start bringing somebody in and start building a team?
That is such a good question. All right, so I'll go through a few things here, because like this is something I've been fascinated with. In my experience, as soon as your capacity is over 80%, you should look at start bringing in a VA. And I say a VA because this is, in all honesty, the cheapest labor source in the world. So you want to start from here. So I know this is a bit of a controversial topic, and like I'm a little bit biased, obviously having a VA company, but it's like overwhelmingly is like when your plate is over 80%. So in a 40-hour week, if 80% of your time is already taken up, you now don't have the capacity for anything else. Now that 20% capacity of spare time is going to first go into like start recruiting. So you don't want to recruit when you're at 100% capacity, because you'll do a really terrible job. You won't interview well. You'll just be, give me the first person I can find. Where it's like, I like to, at that 80% mark, when I still do have that little 20% gap, is I want to spend my time finding a good person. Now it's very likely in the time it takes to find that person. So, even with all the resources I have in the Philippines, it can take me, between 2 and 4 weeks to find someone. And often as that's happening, more things coming in. So like what I'm really cautious of is leaving enough room where I've got time to find someone, number one. And then number two is I've got time to train someone. So as they come in, if I've got no capacity to train this person, then how can I expect them to be any good? Like, how can I expect them to actually deliver me a result? Now, what I get someone to focus on right away, and this is like a huge, like, if people could please take this point away, is the sole focus of your VA, right? It's not for you to keep them busy. It's not about how many hours they work. Like, the only metric that is important is how much time they save you. Now, if your VA is able to save you 20 hours a week or 10 hours a week or whatever that is, and you can invest those hours into higher paying activities, that's where you reap the big rewards. That's where you get to really kind of go, okay, I'm getting a lot of bang for my buck. So, for example, if you were going to hire a VA, and you were going to say, right, my VA is able to do my, I don't know, content writing, which means that's going to save me 10 hours a week from now on that I would normally be writing. Then that means you can invest that 10 hours into link building or social media or doing something on your site to help monetization or anything in there. And like, that's where you get the big growth. That's where you get the big lifts. And then do you know what you do next? Do you want to know?
What do you do next? Yeah,
do it again. You keep training your VA to take more off your plate, or when that VA's time's full, you hire that next one or another team member, and it's all about just upgrading your time. Like, that's the secret. You just keep leveling up your time so that you're only focused on like the highest level activities. Like, it's fascinating how many business owners I meet, and like, you know, this kind of sounds crazy, and I'm sure some people from there, but it's like, I don't know what's happening in my email or social media account. Like, my team take care of that. And it's like, for a lot of people, I just wonder how many hours a day they're losing in email or checking their pages or, you know, things that really can be done by someone else. So there's a huge amount of like level up available just by trimming out the things that, you know, don't actually contribute to the growth of your business. Hugely.
And this all comes back to focus as well. And I just want to mention that I've definitely been in that position where I've been at 100% capacity. I'm like, oh man, just get me anybody in here to help me. And it has been a disaster. And it's not great at all. But actually, I think it sets you back further, right?
Dude, totally. I have to tell this story. Like, anyone who's met my team, like, you've actually seen my team in efforts across the last week. They're like, they come to me now and they're like, dude, your team is amazing. Like, holy shit. I get that comment all the time, and often people will even ask me like, oh, if you're ever thinking of like letting someone go, like, let me know. Like, I'll take them right now. And like, I take that as a huge compliment. And I say, you know, thank you so much. Like, I've put a lot of effort into recruiting champions and training them, but definitely wasn't always the case. Like, I've done that now through experience, but like my first VA, and I'll talk about this, my first VA mate, right? So I started this eBay business at the time, which I spoke a little bit about on the last episode, but I brought May into my business. And basically I just thought she could just do whatever I could do. So I would just start like giving her tasks with no training. And then I was like wondering why she wasn't doing things like I was doing. And like, I was so over capacity that I was doing a terrible job communicating, and she was just like frustrating me. And like she was taking more of my time to do the task than I could have just done it myself. And I think that's what a lot of people experience with staff. Like, they hire people and it's like, oh, I could just do it myself. Like, what's the point of even having these guys? And it's like, I just, you know, in that experience, it was a growth moment for me because I, you know, learned a lot from that. And like, that actually enabled me to have what I have today. It's only through that experience of going, hey, if I hire people and I'm at 100% capacity and I have no room to train them or recruit well, like, this isn't going to go well. This is going to end badly. So now, like, you know, reversing that, that's the point when I look at it from there. Now, something I always get from here is like, people often say, you know, this is the one I get constantly, oh, but I can't afford to hire anyone. And it's like, if that's true, okay, and that's true for you, and you go, you're starting out or you're in a position where cash is tight and you shouldn't, and you can't hire someone, then don't. Spend 12 months getting your business model right. Spend 12 months in the trenches earning your stripes and then do it. Like, you don't have to rush this step. Like, it is essential, but it's like, there is absolutely no reason to just like think that hiring someone's actually going to solve like a business model problem. So take it as a sign from me. I'll tell you right now, this applies to everyone who has a business. If you're a business owner right now, so you're a solo business owner and you're working 40 hours a week and you can't afford to hire a VA, so this is like, you know, lowest labor rates in the world, you have a business problem. There's something not right with your business because you should be producing enough profit to be able to hire someone at that level. Like, the only issues you should have at that stage is like, right, I can't afford to hire like C-level people or high-level managers.
And they don't just have a business, really. What they have themselves is a very low-paying job.
Oh, we said it. We're going to go there.
And yeah, we can go there. And this is something that I try to teach people when they're first looking at buying a website and I've had people that come to me and have bought franchises. You know, I remember talking to one guy, and he might be listening to this, and I hope he sold his franchise. He was, you know, stuck in the Red Rooster franchise, and he's like, oh man, I just got to get out of here. And it was just destroying his life and soul, should I say. And he's like, I want to go away and buy a website. And that's why a lot of people are turning to the websites, is because they can see how many hours need to be put into the business before they purchase it. And this is the biggest thing that I tell people is like, you don't want to go, all my clients come in with their goals being like, I want to work 10 hours minimum or maximum per week, because they already know that they don't want to go away and buy themselves a job, because that's what most people do when they go away and buy in the bricks and mortar businesses.
Absolutely. Don't you laugh a little bit though, Jared? Like, even in that comment from there, this is what I find fascinating, right? If you wanted to, in this example, and I don't know the prices of a Red Rooster franchise, right? I'm going to preface that. I have no franchise experiencing in that area. Neither. But I'm like, the costs in setting up a restaurant, buying a franchise, hiring the team, like all of that. I look at that right now and I go, like, there's people that are doing that constantly. And then when I hear people like gawk at the idea of buying some online training and then having to spend like, you know, 50 grand on a website, I'm like, what planet do you live on? Like, this is a dream deal.
I hear that the people, I don't know whether it was a phase in my life or a time in my life for my age, but I can certainly, and sometimes I still hear it now, and people's like, I just want to own my own cafe, and just, you know, it'd be good to just own my own cafe. I'm like, do you have any idea of what's entailed in owning a cafe, and the failure rate of cafes, and how much people lose doing that? You know, like, you're right, the shop fit out is enormous. The rent, you know, breaking out of your lease, the coffee machine, like all this stuff. And it's like,
dude, I'm tempted to Google it. I reckon a coffee machine, right, a really high-end coffee machine would cost more than a decent website.
This is where we need what, you know, Joe Rogan has, as somebody else in the background on their podcast Googling.
I'm doing it, man. I'm doing it. We're going there. What would you call it? Commercial coffee machine. Coffee.
Yeah, commercial, like failure rate of coffee, coffee shops or cafes. But whilst you're looking at that, I'm going to talk about the what you're talking about is the 100% workload and not having the time to hire, or being frustrated to hire somebody. I want to come back to that where you're saying, like, people are, you know, in their business when they're first starting, is they're spending so much time on social media and doing all these different things in email and all that sort of stuff. And I know for myself, and anybody that's a human being that has been on social media platforms or in their email has been distracted before. And it's a task that it doesn't just take the amount of time to put up a post. It takes longer when you add in the time that your focus gets deviated between these different mediums. And it's a scary thing, because when we have that, and we're business owners, these platforms are so good at luring us in, and they can rob us from our time that needs to be spent on more important tasks. And then I've noticed when you hire an outsourcer to do this stuff, you don't pay them per hour to do the social media and all this sort of stuff, because they could end up taking half an hour or 2 hours to post one thing, whereas instead you pay per results. And that's a really good tip that I've learned from you as well, Charley, is to pay per result, not per hour, because these things can take up time, and paying per hour, per time is you're not getting a true ROI when you do look at start hiring outsourcers for your first online business investment, or even if you are in business already. Yeah. How are we going with the Googling, Charley?
Well, I totally agree with your point as well, Jared. Like, it's just a very different world we live in compared to many people. And I think we forget that. So I'm going to quote a source here. we're going to go proper. I'm on Copper Pantry Consulting, which these guys specialize in, consulting for the hospitality industry. And from their site and their data, they're telling me right now that the failure rate in hospitality businesses, such as cafes, is substantially higher than most businesses.
Wow.
So, and they're citing the idea that because so many people go into it because they love it, like they dream of owning a restaurant or a cafe, that they're pretty much willing to work for free. And I'm sure that doesn't apply to all, but I definitely can see there's some truth in that. The second part of what we're looking at here is like, I'm looking at some coffee makers right now and I'm seeing some for like 20 grand. So I'm on the basis of that, I think I could get a better return buying a website for 20 grand. Oh, wow. Actually, I'm going to take that back. The La Mazzarco three pace, so this can do 3 cups of coffee at once, is 27,500. So
Far out.
if
So
we were
that's-
going to buy a website for that, I would get a better return than that coffee machine.
Yeah, and 100%, because say you round it up to the 30K because you've got to have transport and you've got to have maintenance and stuff like that.
The beans,
right?
bro. The beans. Got to buy
The
beans.
Well, yeah, you're way more of a coffee snob than me because I certainly don't drink coffee. But you're right. The beans are expensive alone, but the customers do pay for the beans. But still, you got the maintenance and all that sort of stuff. And 30K. You buy a business for 30K, you're making a 10K return on your investment per year, and you could spend maybe 2 hours on that business per week if you're working at max capacity on what the business needed, unless you had a VA.
Yeah, I'm down with that. It's just cementing like how good this model is. It really is.
Yeah, and we are biased, but I mean, all you have to do is jump on Google and check out some website brokers to see it for yourself, right?
Well, I would argue with the amount of cafes I've seen close down, or the amount that go through business brokers, if they were really that, I suppose, successful, and it was really that great a business model, we'd be seeing a very different chain of things or chain of events.
Certainly. I think that's a wrap, Charlie. What about you? Do you have anything else to add on between buying one business or owning one business as opposed to multiple?
I'll throw it down. I just think, focus is a really powerful thing, especially in the beginning. So for anyone listening, start with one, earn your stripes, build your skill set. And then as you build resources and capacity, as Jared said, then you can start kind of spreading your wings a little bit. But even then, I think, the more you focus, the more you get.
Yeah. Your future is determined by what you focus on, right?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. We will speak to you again in another podcast. Thanks for listening.